Israel's military just issued an evacuation warning for parts of Tehran, warning that they would soon carry out strikes against military infrastructure there. It comes as one of the president's top political allies, Senator Lindsey Graham, who is pushing for strong action against Iran, says the president is about to act.
Iran with a nuclear weapon is a threat not only to Israel but to us. And 4 presidents have promised to make sure that Iran never had a nuclear weapon. I think it will be Donald Trump who delivers on that promise.
The U.S. is already building up its military presence in the region. Dozens of aerial refueling tankers have moved into the region to assist Israeli fighter jets. Natasha Bertrand out front at the Pentagon. Natasha, what more are you learning about these U.S. assets being moved into place?
Yeah, John, well, what we're told from our sources is that these U.S. Air Force tankers, they have been moved into the region in recent days in order to essentially give President Donald Trump options, should he want them. And one of those options, of course, is to help refuel Israeli jets as they carry out strikes over Iran. But that would be on the lesser end of potential U.S. military involvement. And these tankers are really designed to give President Trump a lot of options. And that, of course, includes one that was presented by U.S. Central Command as a possible option to Trump of actually engaging in joint strikes with the Israelis on Iranian nuclear facilities. So if you have those tankers in the area ready to go, then you can, of course, refuel jets. You can even refuel B-2 bombers, which, of course, are the bombers that would be capable of dropping those very, very heavy munitions on these underground nuclear facilities. And so that is one part of the kind of restructuring that's going on when it comes to the U.S. force posture in the Middle East. But we have also seen, of course, the deployment of another aircraft carrier to the region, the USS Nimitz, which is joining the USS Carl Vinson, which is still in the Middle East. And it remains to be seen whether both are going to be there at the same time, but they will overlap for at least a little while. And of course, they have a tremendous amount of firepower and hardware on them that can be used both to conduct offensive operations as well as to help the Israelis defend themselves against incoming Iranian missiles. So all of this is part of Central Command trying to essentially position the U.S. military in the region in a way that allows President Trump the flexibility to essentially carry out whatever kind of military operation that he wants, John.
Natasha Bertrand at the Pentagon. Thank you, Natasha. Out front now, Congressman Seth Moulton, a Democrat from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. He's on the Armed Services Committee and served 4 tours of duty in Iraq. Congressman Moulton, thanks for being with us. As we await word from the president, sources do tell CNN he's increasingly warming to the idea of using the military to strike Iranian nuclear facilities. What do you think it would mean for the U.S. to get involved in this way?
Well, look, first of all, we all want to ensure that Iran does not have a nuclear weapon. We're all on the same page across the world about that. The question is just simply how best do we get there, and how do we ensure that once we're there, that Iran doesn't get one in the future? And so military action may be part of that solution. And we've already seen Israel successfully take out many components of Iran's nuclear program. But I think at the end of the day, the only way to ensure that Iran never gets a nuclear weapon down the road, whether it be 2 years, 5 years, 10 years from now, is to have an inspection regime in place. That means there's got to be some deal at the end of all of this. So military action or not from the U.S., we've got to be in a position to impose a strict inspection regime on Iran going forward so that if they ever try to develop a nuclear weapon in the future, regardless of how much of their program is destroyed today, we can ensure that that doesn't happen.
We just got word, Congressman, that Israel is striking parts of Tehran right now as we speak. So the strikes very much continue. Do you support the U.S. getting involved directly with this?
I'm very reticent to have the U.S. get involved directly for 2 primary reasons, John. First is that we cannot afford to get bogged down in another war in the Middle East. We can't use all our munitions in the Middle East when we need them to deter a war against China. That's our primary national security threat. Again, something that everyone in Congress agrees with, everyone in the administration agrees with. China is the main threat, so we can't take our eye off that ball. And the second question, again, comes back to this point about what is the best way to ensure long-term that Iran does not have a nuclear weapon. Iran is clearly not going to negotiate with Israel. That means there's got to be someone else that's willing to negotiate to get an inspection regime in place so that Iran can never reconstitute its program. There are a lot of analysts who think that that's exactly what Iran is going to try to do, that the lesson they will take from these strikes is that they have got to sprint to a bomb. So the way we ensure that that doesn't happen is we have an inspection regime in place that only comes through a deal. I'm not sure America puts itself in the best position to actually negotiate that deal if it's involved with military strikes. But that's an open question, and that's something that's, I'm sure, being debated in the administration right now.
Probably being debated in the Situation Room this afternoon. What about this so-called bunker busting bomb, 30,000 pounds, usually dropped from a B-2? How far would that go, do you think, if it was used in Fordo, to destroying Fordo completely and perhaps ending Iran's nuclear program?
Well, I mean, candidly, the answer to that is classified. But there is a question that has to be answered here about just exactly what kind of military operation, the U.S. wants to get involved in. You laid out some of the options. Do we take part in offensive strikes? Do we simply support what the Israelis are doing? What kind of munitions do we use? These are also questions that are being discussed and debated in the Situation Room. I asked our CENTCOM commander some of these questions last week before the strikes, just to understand what the realm of options is. And look, there's sensitive intelligence involved here about exactly what the U.S. can and should do to potentially support this operation.
You asked the questions to intelligence. Congressman Seth Moulton from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, great to see you tonight. Thank you very much. President Trump increasingly considering strikes against Iran. That is according to officials. Just a short time ago, he met with his top advisors in the Situation Room, a meeting that lasted more than an hour. That meeting took place after the president called for Iran's unconditional surrender and threatened to kill Iran's supreme leader. This, as the New York Times reports tonight, that Iran is preparing for possible retaliatory strikes on U.S. bases. And it comes after Vice President J.D. Vance tweeted, notable because he is seen as more isolationist. He wrote, the president may decide he needs to take further action to end Iranian enrichment. A senior Israeli official tells CNN the Israelis are now waiting to see if the president will help them finish the job and take out Iran's nuclear facilities. Now, should the U.S. strike Iran, one potential target, the mysterious Fordo fuel enrichment plant. It's built inside a mountain, and it's where some of Iran's most important nuclear work is now taking place. It's buried more than 295 feet underground. So far, that plant has not sustained major damage from Israel's strikes, which is why Israel needs this. America's so-called bunker buster. The U.S. is the only country that possesses this bomb. It weighs about 30,000 pounds and is able to penetrate deep into the earth. At this moment, the president is already taking some action. 30 U.S. aerial refueling tankers are now in the region. These would allow the U.S. Air Force to refuel Israeli fighter jets carrying out strikes over Iran. And those strikes, they've not let up. We've got new video of strikes over Tel Aviv from just moments ago. Oren Lieberman is out front live in Tel Aviv. Oren, what's the latest you're learning from there?
John, we have seen 2 rounds of incoming ballistic missiles over the course of the last hour. These 2 rounds spaced pretty much just minutes apart. The Israeli military says the first round included 10 ballistic missiles, most of those intercepted, but not all of them. We have seen some images circulating of, frankly, some fires starting and some damage on the ground here. We are waiting to learn more, but crucially at this point, Magen David Adom, that is Israel's emergency response service, says there have been no injuries. That being said, there is the expectation that this could be a long night with more rounds and more volleys ahead. Certainly, if the rounds of ballistic missiles, the volleys of ballistic missiles incoming from Iran are smaller than they have been over the course of the past 48 hours, it could be a very long night ahead here in central Tel Aviv. And there has been incoming throughout the course of the last 24 hours to northern Israel, and the largest city there, the city of Haifa. Meanwhile, Israel waits for a final decision from the U.S. Has President Donald Trump made a decision to get the U.S. involved here? Crucially, the U.S. has struck the Natanz nuclear facility over the course of the past several days and the nuclear facility in Isfahan. But when it comes to Fordo, one of the major seriously undamaged facilities, that will require the U.S. and the bunker buster bomb you mentioned. It's designed to be launched from a B-2 stealth bomber, although it was, I believe, tested from a B-52, so there are options. Israel urging the U.S., frankly, and hoping that the U.S. gets involved to finish essentially the job that the U.S. has started and try to destroy as much as possible of Iran's nuclear facilities. Meanwhile, Iran has warned that it could be a long night in preparing for the potential to strike U.S. facilities in the region, of which there are many. John?